Hi everyone and welcome back to Online Tutorials. In today's unit, which is Unit 4, we'll be talking about theoretical principles of change. Unit 4, theoretical principles of change. Now, no one really likes change, and it's something you're usually quite resistant to. So you need to reduce the resistance to change, mainly by your client. And change can be a very scary prospect. And you can do the following to help. First of all, remind your client to be flexible. Help them to recognize that people do change and develop new skills. Help them to be confident. So focus on their strengths and help them harness their talents. They also need to recognize the negative feelings. So they need to think about the underlying reasons for those doubts and fears. Ask them how realistic those fears are. The client also needs to be made aware. Recognize the amount of change in their life. Stagger major changes. Remember, resisting change takes effort. Find productive ways to spend their energy. So now we're going to talk about tactics So I've just quickly gone over ways you can reduce resistance to change. Now, tactics for implementing change. You should always, a few tactics for helping to implement changes. One, manage their thinking. I think you should encourage them to be positive and expectant of positive change. If they expect problems, then they will encounter them. So, positivity, I'll just write here. But what I mean by that is encourage this positivity and say change is good. Encourage them to find a mentor, a specialist that can help them ascertain any potential pitfalls. And finally, challenge them to make small changes, but start small. So small changes that have smaller risks than before. So you want to encourage them. So there's a big change, but the bigger the change, the more reluctant they will be. So you make small changes which have smaller risk before moving on to bigger challenges. And that way you can help implement change. We touched upon in previous units about key motivators. Why do people, what motivates people to make changes? So we spoke about status, power, material reward, autonomy, expertise, creativity, affiliation, search for meaning. So as well as using motivators to define success, a client can use key motivators to achieve success. So for example, when they use affirmations, like we mentioned before, I'm great at this, I'm good at this. Visualization, so when they look and see themselves in 10 years' time, this is where they want to be. And they use their enabling beliefs. This will breed the motivation being like a muscle. A new concept I want to introduce is the input-output. So there's this old computer saying, rubbish in, rubbish out. So you have to be aware of what you put in, that's the input, into your brain, which is a computer. And then also be aware of your output. So there's positive ways where you can use input-output method to find motivation. So you've got input goes out to output. I won't write these down, but I'll list them. So maybe you can write these down. So input is for motivation, to help with change, or motivation to change. Inputs, so listen to motivational tapes, reading motivational books, finding a role model, finding and using a mentor, listening to upbeat music, watching comedy or funny movies, filtering media messages, seeking advice, feedback from others, keeping in the company of successful and good people, using visualization, recording your success to review during negative periods. And the outcomes would be, or the output you should push out is always smiling, learning to laugh, treating others how you want to be treated, praising others, sharing your success. If you love someone, telling them you love them, showing that you care, give people small gifts, or become a mentor, role model, be polite and share your goals. Okay, so that's the input output motivation strategy. There's this concept called the force field analysis. I'll write it down here for you. But it was coined by a social scientist called Kurt Lewin. I'll write this here so maybe you can read into it if you have some spare time. Kurt Lewin. And he coined the term force field, which means a condition in which an equilibrium between the force pushing for and the force resisting change. For example, of the equilibrium of sitting on a chair, the force of gravity pulls you down, while the chair offers you a counterforce to stop gravity pulling you down to the floor. In Lewin's analysis, they're both driving forces and resistive forces operating. When driving forces are stronger, that's when change occurs. So what does that mean for your client? It means as a coach, you need to encourage the client to work on their motivators, which are the driving forces for change. Motivators encourage a client against resistance and therefore allow for change. There's a small model called the Kubler-Ross change curve, also known as the 5 stages of grief. It's something that happens when there's a lot of change, and apparently it's a cycle that people go through when approaching death. Now, the process can help clients to make changes in their life because it is applicable to any area of life where change needs to be made. And the curve, I'll draw it out, that includes following. Okay, so I'll draw it out here. So initially it's got shock. That's the phase 1. If we put into the client perspective and you're there with your client and we're talking about a change in circumstances to achieve this goal. First, the client will experience shock here. Things will be unpredictable and uncontrollable. Then the next phase they feel is denial. So the client may retreat into the past or deny that there's a problem. Then we've got anger and frustration. I should write anger here. This is where the client may be angry. They may not know what to do next. And then comes we'll just write down depression here. But loss of confidence or self-confidence and depression. So the client feels powerless. They may feel that they lost a sense of self. And then it comes experimenting, which is phase 5. And the client may begin to accept the situation in the experimenting stage. And they want to see it through. They begin to feel a bit more excited. Then comes decisions and planning. So here I will put decisions here, but it's decisions or planning. So the client will begin to reflect on the past and have a greater expectancy for the future. That's when they begin to strategize their goals. And then finally, you have integration or acceptance. At this point, the client feels they have control and a greater sense of stability. It's important to note that not everyone will flow smoothly through this curve. A client may oscillate between phases. They might go from anger, depression. Sometimes some people do stick at that depression stage for longer than needed. And some may refuse to change or accept help. And for this reason, it's important to encourage clients to offer feedback to them to help them move forward along the curve. So that's it really for this unit. What I want you to do is, first of all, define the success cycle and tell yourself and understand what are the stages of the Kubler-Ross change curve and how can they be used in coaching. And that's it for me today. In the next unit, which will be unit 5, we'll talk about time management and productivity.